Good evening, folks. This is Deb Delapiana, and this is your short take. So, before I get into what the subject of the short take is, I'd like to just take a couple of minutes to say something here. As you may or may not know, I have a radio station. And as you may or may not know, it's only music. My two house bands are the Beatles, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And as you may or may not know, Tom Petty's is taken into a big row in 2020 with the Trump family over using I Won't Back Down as a campaign song. And Mr. Trump was told to cease and desist. Well, they managed to get around that for the re-election campaign when Eric Trump's wife recorded her own version of I Won't Back Down. And, you know, aside from sounding like a bunch of raccoons feeding feverishly in my dumpster at night, I agree with one Twitter poster who said they would rather listen to Yoko Ono's greatest hits. Now, far be it from me to understand what Eric Trump doesn't get about the fact that he cannot search the song I Won't Back Down and have his wife's version come up. He thinks Apple is shadow banning her. Sir, pay attention. Tom Petty is an American music icon. I Won't Back Down was one of his biggest, if not his biggest hit. The thought that Lara Trump would be at the top of the list over Tom Petty is a little bit childish. Not to mention that your wife can't sing for shit, but that's neither here nor there. I wasted 2.5 minutes on that, but I had to. It had to happen. So here's what I'm really here to talk about. Today we lost Dianne Feinstein, 90 years old, passed away, served for the first time on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors in 1969. In 1978, she became the first female president of that group. And I remember Dianne Feinstein on the day that Harvey Milk and George Moscone were assassinated. She has been around. She has been an extremely popular mayor of the city of San Francisco. She has served in the Senate with dignity, and she certainly did not deserve the disrespect that she got in the last 6 months of her life. So I just want to say this, and this is probably, not the way political people think, but when we start putting people's dignity and their lives underneath what we should do for political expediency. We've been talking for 6 months about how to get rid of Dianne Feinstein. We didn't have to do that. She's gotten rid of now, okay? Look, let me put it to you this way. You don't want people of a certain age running for re-election, then you pass laws to make that happen. But to try to drive people out of office, I think when you start doing that for political expediency, it's a reflection of how desperate we are as a nation. Do you realize that the majority of people we worry about losing are people who would be defenders of our rights? That's what the problem is here. Is people worried about Ruth Bader Ginsburg because of what would happen in the Supreme Court with people's rights. That's what people were worried about, and that's the reality. Maybe if all of our rights were enshrined in something more stable than what they are in now, or with more definition to reflect the real world we live in today and not 1776, we wouldn't have to do this kind of shit. I don't really know. But I am going to say this. I want to bring this right around to Joe Biden running for re-election. I'm tired of hearing about the age bullshit. I'm tired of hearing about the people on the left who buy into this bullshit. Everybody's worried about Joe Biden's age because That's all the GOP talks about. We don't talk about the fact that Donald Trump looks like a beached whale. By the way, from the side only, and looks like death warmed over without his orange makeup on. Did you know that Donald Trump stopped wearing his mask and went on a tirade over masks during COVID because he was upset that his face makeup was showing on his mask? It's a great world leader for you, huh? Yeah. So no one talks about the fact that Donald Trump's only 3 years younger than Joe Biden. And he is, I'm sorry, batshit crazy. Spends all of his time unhealthily tweeting all day long. The poor victim. We have a president that actually works for a living. He doesn't spend his time on Twitter like all of the GOP does. Joe Biden, for a man who is too old to be president, has certainly got an awful lot done in the face of an awful lot of obstruction. And as a man who spent the first 6 months of his entire first term overturning the mess that Donald Trump made, he just recently went out and stood on a picket line, the first sitting president ever to do that with UAW workers. You know, has he misspoken? Guess what? I've done that too. Did he trip? Did he fall? Guess what? I've done that too. 2014, I was in New Orleans and I managed to twist my ankle in a hole in the sidewalk and fell. I was, I don't know, somewhere around my 60s. I don't remember, because I'm 70 now. And I'm fucking tired of hearing people talk about how old people can't do shit. As far as I'm concerned, you know what? I work 34 hours a week in a hardware store. I carry gallons of paint up and down stairs at 70 years old. I'm still serving customers. I'm still thinking pretty sharp, and I anticipate that I probably will be when I get close to 82, although I probably will be diminished a little bit from where I am today, because I am certainly diminished right now from where I was even 5 years ago. Okay? Perfectly honest with you, there's no point lying about it. But right now, here's where we are in America. We have an 81-year-old president, or an 80-year-old president, running for re-election, who has managed to get at least some bipartisan gun legislation passed. He has managed to pass the Infrastructure Act. Okay? He managed to work behind the scenes to get paid sick time for the railroad workers. Okay? He does his job every day without pointing the finger or being nasty to anybody. If you are standing on the doorstep of authoritarian rule in the United States right now, because that's where you are, whether you want to face it or not, and you are worried about Joe Biden's age, I suggest you have a lot more to worry about. Because at the end of this day, it isn't just about Joe Biden. It's about what your alternatives are. Joe Biden is the Democratic candidate for the presidency in 2024. You have a whole host of scumbags on the other side. If you are an American who wants freedom, who wants to improve this nation, who wants to see things get better, who wants to make change, then you are voting for Joe Biden without question. That is what you do when you are facing fascism. If you think that there is any alternative that is worthwhile other than that, then you are not paying attention. I'll talk to you all later.